All right, Psalms 3, verse 1. A psalm of David when he fled from Absalom his son. Yahweh, how are they increased that trouble me? Many are they that rise up against me. Many there be which say of my soul, there is no help for him in Elohim. But thou, O Yahweh, art a shield for me, my glory, and the lifter up of my head. I cried unto Yahweh with my voice, and he heard me out of his holy hill. I laid me down and slept. I awake, for Yahweh sustained me. I will not be afraid of 10,000s of people that have set themselves against me round about. Arise, O Yahweh, save me, O my Elohim, for thou hast smitten all my enemies upon the cheekbone. Thou hast broken the teeth of the ungodly. Salvation belongs unto Yahweh. Thy blessing is upon thy people. Do you live with consequences? Remember the old TV show, Truth or Consequences? One day, a mother explained to her 5-year-old daughter that if she chose to disobey her, she would have to live with the consequences. The daughter said, "Oh, Mommy," she said with a terrified look on her face, "please don't make me live with the consequences. I want to live here with you." Well, we all live with consequences, don't we? We all live with the consequences of the choices that we have made. This is also true of a familiar Bible character known as the man after Yahweh's own heart. David had to live with the consequences of his sin. In Psalms 3, that was written by David, in the background of the psalm is the betrayal of his own son, Absalom. To truly understand the betrayal, we have to look further back into David's life. David's problem began when he took to himself the wife of Uriah the Hittite. This act of adultery led to an even more despicable act on David's part. Instead of protecting and looking out for the interest of loyal Uriah, he chose to take Uriah's life to cover up his own sin. David's adultery led to murder. And from this point onward, David had to live with the consequences of his sin. Many years later, one of David's sons, Amnon, became a bit too enamored with his half-sister, Tamar, and he raped her. This enraged Tamar's full brother, Absalom, who sought revenge and got it by killing Amnon. When David learned about Absalom's crime, instead of dealing with him in a just manner, he simply allowed him to leave Jerusalem. Why? Because David had committed the same crime. He too had committed the crime of murder over a sexual sin. So as a result, David had lost the moral authority to deal effectively with Absalom. In time, the undisciplined Absalom, who thought he was morally superior and a worthier leader than his father, mounted a rebellion. It was a rebellion that caught David by surprise. So much so, the historical text tells us that he fled barefoot and weeping. Think for a moment of the shame David must have felt, being opposed and hunted down by his own son. But David was reaping the consequences of the bad choices he had made. So as a result, this man who was known as the man after Yahweh's heart, and who had rejoiced in great victories because of Yahweh's intervention, now was characterized by failure, loneliness, disappointment, and agony. Has that ever happened to you? Have you ever felt like a failure because of the poor choices you have made? You know that more than anything else, you need Yahweh's intervention in your life because you are powerless to make a difference. Then we will find in Psalms 3, 4 unfolding stages that reveal Yahweh at work in the life of those who will believe. The psalm reveals that Yahweh is at work in David's life. The same can be true for us as well. Yahweh, how are they increased that trouble me? Many are they that rise up against me. Many there be which say of my soul, there is no help for him in Elohim. But thou, O Yahweh, art a shield for me, my glory and the lifter of my head. I cried unto Yahweh with my voice, and he heard me out of his holy hill. I laid me down and slept, and I awaked, for Yahweh sustained me. And I will not be afraid of 10,000s of people that have set themselves against me round about. Arise, O Yahweh, save me, my Elohim. For thou hast smitten all my enemies upon the cheekbone. Thou hast broken the teeth of the ungodly. Salvation belongs unto Yahweh. Thy blessing is upon thy people. So the first stage is the problem. Yahweh, how many are my foes? Many are rising against me. Many are saying of my soul, there is no salvation for him in Elohim. There are times when we feel outnumbered. David cries out to Yahweh because he was dealing with the rising tide of disloyalty. Both family and friends had turned against him. Now there are enemies and they surround him. It was a real mess. It all seemed so hopeless. There are times when we feel like giving up hope. David's enemies were saying that Yahweh had given up on him. Yahweh was not going to deliver him. These are words that make a profound emotional impact, don't you think? It not only seemed hopeless, but it was communicated to him that he was hopeless. Have you ever felt like that? The situation was hopeless. You felt hopeless. And this brings us to the second stage, the presence. But you, O Yahweh, are a shield about me, my glory and the lifter of my head. I cried aloud to Yahweh, and he answered me from his holy hill. It's at this point that David becomes Yahweh-centered. We must realize that Yahweh's protection is all-encompassing. David refers to Yahweh as his shield. The shield was an instrument of defense, so David understood that Yahweh was his defense. David knew this because of Yahweh's very own words to Abraham in Genesis 15, verse 1. After these things, the words of Yahweh came to Abram in a vision, saying, Fear not, Abram, I am thy shield, and thy exceeding great reward. Notice how David describes Yahweh, though. He is a shield about him. He is shielded on all sides. The protection is from above, beneath, around, without, and within. So, though David is feeling the presence by being surrounded, he also recognizes that his protection is even better. David then refers to Yahweh as his glory. What is interesting about this proclamation is that it has nothing to do with David and everything to do with Yahweh. David's hope is not wrapped up in himself. His hope is wrapped up in Yahweh's presence. When we are passionate for his presence, we all have and we need. When we are Yahweh-centered, when it is Yahweh's presence that we truly desire, we are in the right place. And it's like what Paul writes in the Corinthians, in 1 Corinthians 1, verse 31. that according as it is written, he that glorieth, let him glory in the Lord. David may have been a failure, but he knows he doesn't have to stay that way. He realizes that earthly esteem is transient and fickle. But if what he truly desires is Yahweh's heart, if what he truly desires is the presence of Yahweh, then he is on the right track. And the same is true for us. If we truly desire Yahweh's heart, Yahweh will meet us. Yahweh gives us an upward outlook when we can't look up. David doesn't have to stare at the ground, ruminating on his failures. He can raise his eyes, because it is as if Yahweh puts his hand on David's chin and lifts up his head. And Yahweh does the same for us. He lifts us up in the midst of a rejection, when we feel weak, unable, and incapable, and diabolical schemes seem to take us down. We find that Yahweh uses these for his glory, and Yahweh wants us to use circumstances to move us towards him. David, though on the run, looks back to Jerusalem and the temple, the holy hill, and knows that Yahweh hears. Yahweh answers from his holy hill, and he is relearning the lesson that Yeshua would someday teach in Matthew 6, verse 33. But seek you first the kingdom of Yahweh and his righteousness, and all those things shall be added unto you. And the third stage is peace. I lay down and slept. I woke again, for Yahweh sustained me. I will not be afraid of many thousands of people who have set themselves against me all around. When we feel paralyzed by anxiety and inner turmoil, it's good to know that Yahweh desires us to rest in him. There's a saying that everything looks better in the morning. There's truth to that. For a good night's sleep gives one perspective. But for David, it's even more powerful. For David, it's a good night's rest means that he survived another night on his run. And so his faith swells and his courage soars. He recognizes the source of his comfort and that Yahweh is with him. We need to understand the same thing. We need to understand that Yahweh sustains us over and over again. Although encircled, perhaps even by consequences of our own sin, we can confidently face the worst when we are dependent on Yahweh's presence. It is then that we realize that if we were sustained yesterday and last night, then we will also be sustained today again. We do not have to be afraid. We can celebrate Yahweh's goodness and his kindness even though we don't deserve it. This now brings us to the fourth stage, the punishment. Arise, O Yahweh, save me, O my Elohim, for you strike all my enemies on the cheek. You break the teeth of the wicked. The tone of the song now takes an interesting turn, for David becomes even more emotional. So David shows us that we can tell Yahweh how we really feel. For David, it's a real emotional outburst. Get up! Arise, O Yahweh! I'm in trouble. Save me, O my Elohim. Don't let my enemies have their way. It's not right. David tells Yahweh how he really feels. I do, however, think it's right to desire justice. We're to desire and seek justice. Why? Because when we do so, we are like Yahweh. Yahweh is the Elohim of justice. The metaphor that David uses is very striking. The cheekbones and teeth represent cutting words, distractions, injuries, perhaps even words that bitten his soul. Strike them, Yahweh, where they have stricken me. David has been ridiculed and subjected to of evil schemings, so David simply asked Yahweh to make it right. Notice that David is not looking for the opportunity to make it right himself. He's asking Yahweh to do it. He asked Yahweh to do it because salvation belongs to Yahweh. This is why David finishes the song with, salvation belongs to Yahweh. Your blessings be on your people. David also knows full well that without Yahweh, there is no solution. At least, there is no solution worth having without him. So let us learn from his example and celebrate salvation. Yeshua said in Matthew 11, verse 28 and 30, Come unto me, all you who labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you, and learn of me, for I am meek and lowly of heart, and you shall find rest unto your souls. For my yoke is easy, my burden is light. There was a Sunday school teacher who was sharing this text, and her young pupils, and she asked, my yoke is easy. Who can tell me what yoke is? The boy raised his hand and said, a yoke is something they put around the necks of animals. Then the teacher asked, what is the yoke God puts on us? The quiet little girl raised her hand. It's God putting his arms around you. I think it's exactly how David felt. Though he was filled with guilt, shame, and humiliation, and as bad as it felt to be on the run from Absalom, Yahweh was giving him something greater. It was the loving hand on the chin to lift his face, and Yahweh's loving arms around his neck. So realize today that whatever you are facing today, that salvation belongs to Yahweh. Any rescue that comes your way is not from your ingenuity. It comes from Yahweh's grace and mercy. It's Yahweh's work alone. So celebrate the blessing. Yahweh blesses. And realize that Yahweh's blessing takes us way beyond victory. It takes us into his eternal presence. This is why Jabez prays, O Yahweh, that you would bless me. Yahweh's blessings demonstrate to us the height, breadth, and depth of his love for us. Failure does not have to be the last word. Yahweh's love can be. Salvation belongs to Yahweh. So failure is not the last word. Our problems are not the last words. Loneliness is not the last words. Guilt and shame are not the last words. So rejoice in that. Salvation belongs to Yahweh. So rest in Yahweh. Even if the circumstances of your head are spinning, and realize that Yahweh will make a way. Salvation belongs to Yahweh. Seek to be in Yahweh's presence. Let him be your glory and the lifter of your head. Let him do in you what will be for your best. Salvation belongs to our Elohim, who sits upon the throne, and unto the Lamb. Praise and glory, wisdom and thanks, honor and power and strength be to our Elohim forever and ever. Yahweh bless.